Welcome to Career Insights, where we help career-driven professionals advance their career. If this is your first time here and are interested in learning the latest tips, tutorials, and exclusive interviews with senior executives and experts on their career journey, then you can start now by subscribing and hitting the bell to be notified. Hey everyone, I'm Bernardo, and I'm super excited that you're joining me tonight, wherever you're joining me from, whether it's on the Twitter platform, Facebook, or YouTube. Please say hello. Let us know where you're joining. This is going to be a really great conversation with Amy Bergen-Larranaga, who is going to talk to us about her journey, her launch of her career during COVID. So let's bring her in. And along the way, if you have questions, just feel free to pop in what questions you have. And so for Amy or myself. So I'm going to bring Amy in. Hi, Amy. Welcome.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing great. So I was
Good.
just telling our audience members that are joining us from the various different platforms that this is just to be a casual conversation. I know that we kind of did a video about why hiring a coach, and just to kind of bring everyone up to speed who may not have seen it, tell us a little bit about you, your business, and then let's just have a chat.
Okay, that sounds great. Hello, everybody. And Bernardo, thank you so much for having me on. This is so exciting for me. So I'm a born and bred Jersey girl, and not to go into my entire background, but I went to Rutgers University where I studied directing of all things. And when I graduated from college, I made my way into corporate America in media sales. So I did that for many, many years. And in 2001, when I took a little hiatus from that corporate world, and I had my son, I was supposedly a stay-at-home mom. I was very fortunate. But, I've been working since I was 12, so there was no sitting at home for me. And it was at that point that I decided to become a personal trainer. So I got certified in personal training. And now I run a company called Win Within Coaching, which more takes a look at the mental side of athletic performance. So that's where I am. I work with athletes of all different kinds, ages, and that's where I am. It's been a great journey from corporate America to personal training, back to corporate America, and now I'm trying to combine it all into one.
Thank you, and apologies as I'm kind of manning the whole booth on my own. I know my viewers are used to seeing this already because sometimes my eyes are shifting. It's not because I'm not paying attention. I have to say, one of the things, not as a side note, if anyone knows of a quick way, of easy way of being able to maneuver these live streams, please let me know. I'm always interested in learning. But on a side note but outside of that, based on what you were talking about, going into directing and then going into media sales and then opening up, focusing on physical training. Tell us a bit more about, how did you get, that's fascinating. How did you get into physical training? What motivated you to go into that?
Yeah, I was a high school athlete. I was a college athlete for a while. I was always very, very passionate about health and wellness and fitness. I love working out. And, I had a chance to reinvent myself, which I was really, really lucky when I left corporate America. A side note on that, as good as corporate America was to me, and I had a great job, it was never anything that I really enjoyed. It was just a paycheck, and I wanted to move out like many kids do when they're done with college. So I got a job, and, then you kind of get sucked into that, right? So when I took a little hiatus from that, I had my son. I thought to myself, what do I love? What do I love doing? And the thing that came to mind was fitness. And so I said, let me work in a gym. I worked in a gym at a front desk for a while. And then I thought, I can do this. And I will say, Bernardo, maybe the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Well, maybe a couple of other things, but my mind was, I was a new mom. I was out of the academic realm for so long, studying every bone in the body, every muscle, every ligament, how it works. But it also turned out to be one of the greatest things that I've ever done. It allowed me to combine my passion for fitness and wellness with some of my core values of kindness and service. And it just fed my soul. I just feel so lucky that I followed that and got into that. So that's the backstory on the personal training.
And I think it's wonderful to hear, because not many times or I say many times, people fall into a pattern of a career and not really thinking about what do they want. And maybe it's because of family obligations or financial obligations.
Mhm.
And being able to take a step back and saying, what do you love? Fitness and wellness is something that's near and dear to your heart. So you've decided to launch a business during COVID, which is the coaching business. I have to say, some people are like, how did you, like, why? But I love to know, what really inspired you to take on that challenge, especially since everyone's like hunkered down.
Right. Well, I didn't really think of it like that, Bernardo. What happened was I love the personal training. Like I said, it fed my soul. But then, when I was doing it, there were some things that kept surfacing. For example, behavior modification, people having trouble sticking to exercise plans, people having trouble making change. So I kind of filed that a little bit. And then I started thinking back on when I was an athlete and what maybe got in my way. And then I trained and ran the New York City Marathon. And let me tell you, for me, at no joke at mile 22, if you don't have some mental strength and you're just your average runner, and I also, when I was training, I came down with bilateral Achilles tendonitis. So I missed 2 months of training. So that was another mental thing, injury, getting through an injury. Do you keep going? How do you keep going? So my wheels just started turning and I thought, you can make your body as fit as you want, but the mental component, the mental fortitude, figuring out what gets in your way or how to be in flow consistently just was so appealing to me. So I just figured, that would be a way for me to combine both disciplines and work with athletes. So, and I didn't really think, oh shit, we're in COVID, I can't do this. I thought, oh shit, Bernardo, I need to hire Bernardo as a business coach so he can help me.
Well, thank you, and you as you were as well, thank you for the compliment. Also, as you were talking about mile 22, it was brought me back to when I had done my own like half marathon run, and I guess the point, it is all mental, right? You do get to a point. I mean, there's a physical component of it. Having people around you to support you and push you on, it helps you to be able to get to where you are. And I think that's really the crux of it. It's the mental state, right? Having that positive outlook and having that outlook that you can do it. I know
Right.
that I'm not an athlete. I wasn't never raised as an athlete. I was struggled with weight, and some of my viewers know this. But when I started to do triathlons and half marathons, I have to say that the training definitely helped, but it is also tricking your mind to not see that, oh crap, I got another 20 miles to go, but kind of
Right.
thinking to yourself, okay, how am I going to do the endurance part? Because I just want to finish, and it
Right.
doesn't matter when I finish, but making sure that you get that done. And then the last piece to it is, when you are looking at it from a psychological standpoint, your mental state of what you want to get accomplished will really lead you to success. And I know
Right.
when we started working together and you're like, where do I begin? Where do I start? I think it was that combination of what was it that you're looking to do? Because one of the things that I think, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that when you go, or when one goes from employee to entrepreneur, there are a lot of things that go behind the scenes that people don't always see. And that is not just the administration side. It's also, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Who am I going to, like, how am I going to get clients? There's the imposter syndrome that comes up. There's all these elements that ultimately get at you, the little voices in your head that don't
Right.
help you set yourself up for success. And I'd love to get your thoughts as you were going through your journey, what was going through your mind and what has helped you that may help others that are watching that may be interested in either launching their own business or want to work with you.
Yeah. I think the first thing that went through my mind, I mean, I dove in. I was so passionate about the fitness. I was so passionate about athletic training. I have a son who plays college basketball. I saw how he needed it. But I had always worked for someone. I had always been an employee, whether it was when I worked for the television station, when I, even when I was a personal trainer, I worked at gyms, I ran some gyms, I never had any clue. And so I guess sometimes ignorance is bliss because you dive right off the high dive. But once I hit the water, I think the first thing that went through my head was terror. I'm like, I have no clue where to start. And I'll never forget the first day that, we started talking and you said to me, I can help you. And I'm like, oh. So, I think at that point, you don't know where to start and you feel really passionate. At least that's what I experienced about wanting to do it. And then that fear sets in, just like mile 22 or, any other, I played lacrosse in college. When the ball would come to me, I'd get so scared I'd miss it. Right. So where do you start? And I would say to anybody who has had similar experiences to myself, who's always worked as an employee, that hiring a business coach, and I'm not just saying this because, you're my friend and we work together and you helped me out immensely, but just having a roadmap. And I remember when we first started working, you laid out a 12-week plan to start. And it started with the basics of who is your target, and it went all the way through legal stuff, marketing, technology, competitive analysis, all things that I had never had to do. And, weekly assignments to try and figure this stuff out. And, that was tough. You were pretty hard on me, but it was great. And I think there's no shame in saying, hey, I need help. I've never done this before. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if you think about your training, right? You're used to working with someone to train you to get to a particular point in athletics. It's a
Mm-hmm.
similar concept where you're trying to get to a particular point into being an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, which you definitely are. And the things that don't go into people's minds, we were talking and you were explaining as well, is you get scared, and sometimes you need somebody on your side to just really help you to say, look, it's going to be okay. It's not going to be easy, but let's figure out how to get you set up for success, which I think is extremely important. And whether it's working with me or any business coach, any entrepreneur will benefit significantly by having one, because they also kind of help you ground yourself as to taking a step back as to what should you be focusing, what should you not be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
And many times, I was actually speaking with someone earlier this week where they're spending a lot of their time just on the administration side and not really getting their mind in the game of, okay, how am I going to get clients? Who are my clients?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also why many times people say focus on your niche. I think niching is good as a starting point just to get your confidence to be built up. And then once you start getting your client base in place, then you can start expanding. Okay, here's what I could do. Here's what I can do. And I think that's extremely helpful. That being said, your focus is on the weekend warriors, the high school and college athletes. Tell us a bit more about what inspired you to focus on that specific area of focus of business.
It's interesting. And just to echo what you just said, the analogies are it's really interesting. The analogies of how I work with my athletes or weekend warriors, whoever they are. And I will agree with you, as you get going, even though that's my focus, it's not that I'm not working with other people as well. But the analogy of just walking alongside somebody and supporting them in their dream and helping them. And that's kind of how I look at it with the athletes. Sometimes with athletes, and I'll get back to your question in a minute. Sometimes with athletes, there's a lot of pressure. And so if you think, you need a mental coach or a mindset coach, whatever you want to call it, a performance coach. I think the first thing that people think is, I need to be fixed. And I always tell my clients, I'm not here to fix you. You're not broken. I'm here to support you. And let's figure out what your dream is and how do we get there? How do we come up with a system that's personal to you? And that's what a business coach, that's what you did for me. How do we come up with a system that can help support your business so that you can go out and live your dream and do what you want and help people in this way? So I think, to answer your question, what really the reason I really got back to that is just what I experienced as an athlete, and then having the joy of the personal training, and just looking back and thinking, wow, that fear just really got in my way. I mean, we only have so much energy, right? So if my energy is going towards my fear, it's not going towards my performing at my peak, or whatever, however you want to put it. So, and there's a lot of other mental things that go into training athletes. When athletes get injured, how do you maintain their mental strength? How do you maintain their focus? I mean, you brought up COVID. I had one of my athletes, high school athlete, the whole family got COVID. So he had to quarantine for 2 weeks. And he was really sort of, I don't want to say depressed, but very lethargic and apathetic. I mean, this is a kid who has a skills coach. He has a conditioning coach. He has a nutritionist. He works with me. So I was able to, because of my personal training background, I was able to work with him on a physical program as well, of stuff that he could do at home. So it was a really nice crossover. And it's just something that I'm really passionate about. And like I said earlier, to me, just being able to be kind and support people and be of service is just really important to me.
I was just going to say that one of the things that sets you apart from any coach that focuses on performance coaching is that you do have the certifications and the background and the expertise as it relates to the body. And when you were saying earlier on about the having to learn about posture, bones, ligaments, and so forth, I cannot tell you many times I see these videos on various different platforms with bad posture, and you can really hurt yourself physically and cause long-term damage. So hiring someone that has that combination of, not only the coaching side, but also the fact that they understand the body goes
Right.
very far, right? As to what they should focus on, or knowing when to take a break and so forth.
Right. Yeah. And I think it also allows me to connect with the athletes, because they sort of know that I can put my money where my mouth is, and I know what they've been through. I know I can come up with some sort of body weight routine that's going to be really effective for an athlete who's stuck at home in quarantine. So yeah.
No, I think that's great. And so, as people are, as we slowly get vaccinated, and Lord knows by when everyone will be completely free of this disease, the question, I guess, is really around, how do you see yourself continuing to work with student athletes, or their parents or whomever, as we're going into 2021?
Well, I would really like to be on site working with athletes. I mean, obviously, that would be ideal. It's been quite the luxury, I guess, to have Zoom calls and to be able to continue my business through this. We've all tried to adjust, but being able to go in face to face, talk to athletes, motivate athletes, inspire athletes, watch my athletes play, that kind of stuff will be really exciting to me when we get back to that. Now, having said that, I have athletes, in different parts of the country, so they're not all going to be accessible, but the ones that I can get to, and just to start pushing my business for full team dynamics and full team performance, that would be what I would want to do once we, hopefully sooner than later, get out of this nightmare.
Yeah, and I think that definitely will come to fruition. I think once things start to get to a sense of normalcy, I think people will be able to start to meet in person. And when we're thinking about anyone that's interested in working with you, where should they go? Like, is there a site that they should be going to?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because talking about the progression of people with a business coach, I wanted to say this before. I remember when we started working, I said, I have to make my website. I have to make my website. And you're like, Amy, just like, there's a lot of other things that we need to do before. I think the website was like at the very end, we got to the website. So another benefit of, not jumping in and putting the cart before the horse,
Yeah, and not to interrupt you, but I also remember the struggle with coming up with the name and our discussion around how to name your business. And for those that haven't seen any of the previous videos, one of the things I always advise my clients when they're launching their business is not to call it your name. And it's not because you should be ashamed of the name, but there are two factors. One is psychologically, we tend to associate ourselves with a particular brand. Doesn't matter what kind of company, whether it's a large company, small company, but we associate it with a brand. And if you're going to launch your own business, calling it something else makes the psychological switch from employee to entrepreneur, because you identify yourself with that brand. And even though you own it, it still feels like an outer body. I can't speak English, an outer body connection between you and that entity. And the second point is, at some point, you may wind up wanting to sell it. And so who's going to buy Bernardo Tirado Consulting, right? For example. So I think that's why it's really important to really think about longer term. Sorry, I just wanted to mention
Yeah,
that.
no. Again, case in point, something I never thought of. I mean, Amy BL coaching. I mean, I was in. You're like, not so fast. So after thousands of texts to you and sleepless nights trying to come up with the perfect name, which we all know there is no such thing as perfect. It's Win Within Coaching. I love the name of my business. I'm so happy and proud of it. And I like to joke that it was easier giving birth, but that's what it is. So it's winwithincoaching.com, or you can link in with me or Facebook me, whatever you want. But yeah, I'd love everybody to check out my website. Any feedback, very much appreciated.
Yeah, and I think those that are watching, or if they're watching in replay, definitely take a look at the website. I had a look at it. I was like, I'm redesigning mine. I'm like, I think I may take some of these ideas as well myself, because I think it's always good to refresh what you're trying to sell and who you're trying to target. So I wanted to pause. I know we were chit-chatting, and I know we can talk for hours. For anyone that is watching, like I said, either on Twitter, Facebook, or on YouTube, for any questions that you may specifically have as it relates to whether it's launching your business, or, we have a sports performance expert here. So if there's a question that you have as relates to any, I don't know, workouts or goals that you have, feel free to ask away. So while we're waiting for some questions to pop up, as you can see, this was easy. And we have one question. How do you suggest starting the process of searching or selecting a business coach that best meets your needs? So that question is, how do you suggest starting the process of searching or selecting a business coach that meets your needs? So how did you come up with wanting to work with me compared to somebody else, I suppose? I guess, what was your selection criteria, or what came to mind?
For me, the first thing was connection. And the minute we started talking, I just really felt a connection to you. I thought you were very supportive, but you had a vision of, how things should be done. So I just felt comfortable with that degree of instruction, I guess, if you will, because I really, really had no idea. So that was the first thing for me, that connection. And then, of course, I looked at your background, which is incredibly impressive. And then we started working together and started talking, and we had an introductory sort of consultation. So I'm not sure. Just connection is something that's really important to me. I want to work with people that I can connect with and can understand and communicate on a similar level. So that's what's important to me. I think it depends what's important to the individual and what kind of business it is. I found you to be very universal. I think that you could help with any kind of business. So yeah, that would be my answer. I would love to hear what your answer is.
So I agree with you 100%. There needs to be a connection, because when you hire a coach, whether it's a business coach or a career coach, there has to be trust. There has to be trust. There has to be a comfort level of where you can just be your authentic self and not worry about judgment. I think that's what sometimes happens when you're working with coaches, is that there's a concern of judgment. And at the end of the day, the coach is there really to support you and help you. It has nothing to do with whatever the coach is thinking. I think what style that's made me very different is that I always look at it from an action-based coaching, which doesn't always resonate with everyone, to the point that you're referring to, which is coming up with a structure. And what's allowed me to have the success, as similar to your successes from your own business, is I'm listening to what are the pain points that you have, and how do I structure a program around those pain points to help solve those pain points for you together. And it's always a framework that I come with in mind, and it's a matter of working collaboratively to figure out, okay, what are the steps that actually will help address those, so that ultimately you get to a point where you are really feeling great about what you're doing. Another question that's come through is, Amy, looking back through your coaching process, what was the top number one lesson learned that you can't or didn't learn from books and or in previous work experience? What was the standout?
Huh. I think one of the standouts that you can't learn from a book, even though you'll read it in many books, is just be your true self. And that is something that I've learned through coaching as a personal trainer and as an athletic performance coach. I'm not sure if that really answers the question, but I would also say that really facing your own fears, and that is one of the things that I've always preached to my son. And, it's something that people always say, don't let fear get you down, but it's really true. And once you get on the other side of that discomfort or that fear, most of the time, I can't think of any time that it hasn't been rewarding for me. I mean, I can remember the first guy that I had to personal train, and, he was a big bodybuilder and I was terrified, and I tried to think of every way to get out of it. And really, it just came down to facing that fear of feeling like I couldn't do it and just doing it anyway. So I don't know if that answers the question, but those are a couple of things that I would say aren't really experience. They're just things that I learned that work, being yourself and pushing through.
Yeah, and I think it was also going through the coaching process itself. If there was something specifically that you wouldn't be able to have learned through books, that by working with a personal coach, you've kind of, you wouldn't have been able to
Oh,
learn.
oh, I got it. Okay, from that standpoint, um, I think it's the structure for me that I really needed, the structure of where to start. And I maybe could have found that in a book, but it was the structure, the support, the accountability, the action steps that really helped me in working with you. And, I would never do it any differently if I had to start, if I was starting, even if I was starting another business, I would probably hire you again.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't see if there's any other questions, but if any other ones do pop up, feel free to ask away. And one of the things that you and I haven't really talked about, but it is when you work for a corporation, you kind of act and you perform a specific way, and you kind of carry that on when you are looking to launch your business, and it's kind of shaking that off to say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, this is how I want to focus and build my business. Curious to get your thoughts around, how has the work in corporate America translated into your business and being an entrepreneur?
Well, I think all that experience really helped me. I mean, I feel like I've kind of come full circle because I feel like my background in sports growing up is sort of a metaphor for life. And I was able to take that competitive nature and that drive and the ability to set goals and everything into corporate America. And now I feel like it's coming back the other side. I mean, certainly when you're working for someone else, they're doing all the back end stuff, but you still need to have that motivation, that drive, that little bit of that competitive edge to get yourself out there. So I feel like I've sort of swung that back into what I'm really passionate about.
I love it. And so I don't know if there are any other questions, but I don't know. Was there anything else maybe you wanted to add, Amy, that I should be asking? Because I know this is just a simple conversation, but I want to make sure that I touch on all our points just for this chit chat.
No, no, no. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate whoever hopped on. Yeah, I'd say train your mind and live your dream, whatever that dream is, because nothing's easy. But if you have that mental fortitude, whatever you want, you can go out and get it. I really believe that with all my heart. And finding the right support systems along the way, whether it's me as a sports coach helping an athlete, whether it's you as a business coach helping me, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I echo that 100%. It's your mental state, your outlook that really will take you far. And I mentioned this in a previous, I think it was a conversation where if you start to lead with the negative, the I should have, could have, would have, before you even started, you've already created a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is you're not going to make it happen. And
Right.
it's getting that confidence. And I agree with you 100%. Having the support system around you makes a world of a difference. And it's important to have, I don't know if it's your tribe, your pod, whatever you want to call it, of people that will always be your cheerleader because when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have downs. I mean, I know many times you see a lot of successful entrepreneurs only talk about their successes, but I'm sure they have gone through a lot of iterations of failure and despair to be able to get to where they are, which are all learning lessons. But when you get to that point,
Right.
having those people around you to lift you up means a great deal because it's like you can do it. Just like, when I was mentioning about doing the marathon, half marathon, having people cheer you on will just continue to push you to get to the finish line. And that's what matters most.
Right. Well, how many wonderful sports quotes are there from Michael Jordan and a million others? I've only succeeded because I failed so many times. I don't know everybody's exact quote, but that's the sentiment. You have to be willing to do that because failure isn't failure. Failure is learning, right?
I
You
agree
either,
with you 100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
you either win or you learn is what I tell my athletes.
Yeah, it's when I used to interview, I having worked in corporate America myself, interviewing a lot of people. One of the questions I've always asked is, "Tell me about a time when you failed. What have you learned, and what was the end result?" Many times when I hear people, "I've never failed," that's like a big red flag because either you're completely clueless to something that's failed,
Right.
or you're lying. At the end, you want to be able to make sure that you're looking at failure not in a negative way. And I'm not encouraging that you should always fail, but when it happens, you have to look at it and say, okay, what can I learn from this situation? And
Right.
I kind of equate it to the metaphor of like, if like the Apple products or any products that you use today, let's say the iPhone did not come out in its first version like that. There were different prototypes along the way to get it to its finished to final product. And the same thing is with yourself, right? When you're trying to get to, it's going to take some time. Sometimes you fine tune it. And we have some of our viewers saying that they agree with your failure comment, Amy. So that's great to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Well,
So this has been terrific. I thank you. I welcome everyone to check out my website and hopefully I'll hear from some people.
yes, absolutely. And so thank you so much, everyone who's been able to join tonight. And next week, we're having Jonathan Bortenay. I'm hoping I didn't butcher his last name. It's French. I should know how to pronounce it properly, and he probably will beat me. Not really. So this guy is this gentleman that I met. He is someone who I actually met as a part of my article on Psychology Today about the psychology of TikTok. He has been helping people learn how to grow on TikTok. And when I interviewed him back in December, he had about 230,000 followers. He now has, in about a month's time, 500,000 followers. And it's amazing to see. And we'll be talking about that platform, how to grow on it if you're interested in it. But also, I just joined Clubhouse, which is another app. And just so that you're aware, Amy, and you'll indulge me for 1 second, Clubhouse, and there's so much out there, but what's different from Clubhouse than all these other apps is that you're able to think of it as a party line, like a 1980s or 1990s party line where you can drop in and you're just chatting with people. It's the same concept, with the exception that it's moderated. You have a specific topic, or you can either join and talk, or you could just listen. So we'll talk more about that next week. And so stay tuned for that. And if there are any topics that you'd like for me to cover, or if you're not following me, feel free to please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Professor Tirado. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe at YouTube. And if you are not following me as well on Facebook, feel free to follow me on Welbeck Advisors. Until next time, have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you so much,
everybody.
Amy, for joining.
Thank you, Bernardo. Appreciate